All right, now talk about OpenAI. There's a news coming up. OpenAI seems like a lot of changes in OpenAI.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of founding members of OpenAI, including the CTO, um, Mira Murati, if I'm not mistaken, has decided to leave OpenAI. A number of top researchers have decided to leave OpenAI. One of the other founders decided to be on leave. Seems like Sam Altman is one of the very few founders of OpenAI left in OpenAI. And then there's also a news, or at least a rumor, saying that OpenAI is going to change their corporate structure from uh, a nonprofit to a for-profit company. So this is pretty big news in the tech world. So, Jason, what do you think about the development?
I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but it looks like there's significant turmoil happening. And I'm wondering maybe we can talk about the causes, or I guess how is Sam Altman running this company into the ground? Or maybe, if it's not into the ground, then where is it going?
Yeah, it's interesting development. Number one is what I'm being observing is I don't know, first of all, if the turmoil in OpenAI is impacting the Microsoft stock. Can you go to maybe Yahoo Finance and pull up Microsoft stock? So Microsoft
Mhm.
stock price has been a little bit sluggish recently, compared to some of the other tech stocks. Like for example, if you can look at Meta, it just like all-time high. Even Apple, I think, is close to all-time high, like as bad as the the quote unquote recent innovation, right, of the latest iPhone release. But they are also close to all-time high. So yeah, if you look at Microsoft, it's a little bit sluggish. You can put Microsoft maybe side by side with Meta. I guess this has to do with at least has something to do with the turmoil at OpenAI because of uncertainty. And remember, I think Microsoft had a really good ride in terms of stock price, partially thanks to OpenAI's rise. So now, seems like there's some turmoil in OpenAI that seems to be causing some trouble for Microsoft stock price. Yeah, you can see Meta is actually all-time highs, doing pretty well. So that to me is a risk potentially for Microsoft, but long term, I don't think like the non-profit structure actually would work for OpenAI. People probably recognize that. That's a very awkward corporate structure. Um, OpenAI
Yeah, it
needs
was
this.
it was weird, right? With the employees getting issued like shares, but not quite shares. There's like some
Yeah,
sort of, they can't exactly issue, because they're being nonprofit. They can't exactly issue like shares into a company or RSUs.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And also, Sam Altman not getting any share. Like in that case, what is the incentive for Sam Altman running this if he doesn't have any share? I think in multiple interviews, Sam himself expressed that the nonprofit corporate structure, and then they later created like a very weird like for-profit arm under nonprofit. That is pretty convoluted corporate structure. It's basically a mistake, and doesn't recommend any new company startups doing that anymore. So the change to profit, I think, is inevitable. It's yet to see how much Sam is going to get. That's number one. Number two is what's more important is how many talents, especially top-notch AI talents, they can continue to hire and attract at OpenAI, because that's the key for the success for the AI company. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
a pretty uncertain situation. Hopefully things will actually turn out for the better than worse after the change. But this change is probably inevitable because of the big change in the corporate structure.
Yeah, but that it loses the sort of original mission of like the whole point of naming it OpenAI, right? Like we go back to Elon Musk wanting to sue the name and call it closed AI now. It is now closed AI, right? Like it's a private corporate structure now. And I think the leadership leaving has to do with the disagreements, although they probably signed away sort of their rights to talk about it. So as part of their like probably exit package. So we're not able to like really see what the true reasons are.
Yeah, that is true. It's hard to actually know what's actually going on internally, but you're right. Yeah, OpenAI no longer actually open source their models. And it's becoming very clear they are focused on building products and building on commercializing those products. Although the products is still like top notch, state of the art in the industry, very, very useful.
Have you gotten a have you gotten around to checking out the O1 um, release? You're a
Yeah, I
subscriber
did.
to.
Yeah, I used the O1 preview version. It's actually pretty good. The chain of thought seems pretty good. I use it to basically write code for me. What I found was it can write more consistent code and seems like to have better chain of thought in general. But the code it generates still is buggy. I still need to review all the code and need to make some changes before deploying it. So there's still way to go. And I'm interested to know the actual full O1 version, what it can do, not the preview version. But yeah, it's pretty clear that OpenAI is making good progress in in this case a new genre of AI models. In this case, O1 that is using reinforcement learning to do better chain of thought to solve more complex problems.
I've seen I've seen some improvements on, I guess, just on Reddit and such, and there's a lot of fear, I guess, into developing into the singularity and having a true like AGI on the rise in the next like within 5 years, possibly.
Right. It's hard to predict, to be honest. Like I work in the AI industry, but it's really hard to predict, quote unquote, when singularity gonna happen. But the changes of AI on the society is, I can say, is very imminent. Some of the industries gonna be impacted much sooner. What I can see is, for example, customer support industry is going to be disrupted very, very soon with the AI agents. The AI agents now can speak, can talk, and they basically have access to the entire knowledge base, let's say, for a company to do customer support, and they are more scalable than human agents. So this is the area that I feel gonna actually replace a lot of human labor much sooner. But more general kind of singularity AGI across the board, I actually don't know when that would happen, if that happens at all. But yeah, just bit by bit, you will see more changes coming. That's my prediction to the industry.
And if AGI does come, there's a chance that it may be pretty well hidden. We may actually, for example, if AGI is here, we may not actually know about it simply because the AI is so terrifyingly smart to not tell us about it.
Yeah, that's possible. And also maybe, yeah, it's not released to the public. So that's also a possibility. Just like, for example, internet. It was created by the US military, if I'm not mistaken, and it was not released to the public until decades later, and then got commercialized and really got popular across the world.
Now, how does thinking about AGI, and it's like there's some chance of it being weaponized through the US, maybe possibly China's developing their own things as well. And what are your like opinions on like this sort of tech development in the US versus elsewhere in the world?
I don't have a lot of insights in terms of the AI development across the world. I would say most of AI development seems to be still very concentrated in private sectors in the US, driven by money, driven by capital. Yeah, I don't actually have a lot of insights into that. But what's clear to me is, or what I can think of is, I think a lot of the general modeling technologies that is available publicly, and the different countries will develop their own models based on the latest research. The bottleneck is actually on the still is current on the hardware. Like, for example, the access to compute, like GPUs and whatnot, and also access to energy. So in that case, I think US is obviously in a great position because it has like the priority access to compute GPU. I do see energy is a limitation because a lot of times the data centers cannot run because just the lack of energy. If you want to talk about China, China on the opposite, obviously China has a lot of talented people. The access to the most advanced GPU compute is limited unless China develops its own. Currently, it still relies on things like Nvidia chips, and then there's a import export limitation. So that to me could be a limitation there. But China is very rich in energy.
I think that's just short-term limitation. Just to have a little tangent off that. Energy shouldn't be a problem for China. Energy is very traditional.
Yeah,
China's gonna, if China wants to, it can build energy plants like they built the rail system, right? It's just all in focused, like 15 years, like complete infrastructure update. So I think energy
right.
is not going to be a problem, but the tech could be a bottleneck. It could be a good barrier to entry. It's Nvidia does hold a lot of the cards, but I think if there are engineers that say have the experience working in Nvidia and they decide to go return to China for whatever reason, and China has this priority and giving them the resources, I think it could be caught up within what, half a decade. So it lags behind for now, but I don't see it as a long-term problem.
Yeah, long term, it's possible. It's hard to predict, but it's possible that the technology, let's say in China, in US, and then in different other places in the world will catch up. Maybe they converge, maybe not. Currently, I think there's a general consensus that China, in terms of AI, is maybe a few years, maybe 5 to 10 years behind, compared to maybe 5 years behind compared to the US, the latest, most cutting edge.
Yeah, but
But
it'll probably catch up very quickly though. Like looking at, the best phones, like Huawei's phones are so much superior, for example, than like the innovation that Apple's iPhone have. And I've been looking at upgrading my phone because it's been a couple of years, but many people online are like, well, Huawei's phones, they can expand, they can fold, they can do a lot more things than Apple's phone for like a fraction of the cost. You're looking at like 300 US dollars compared to like 1200 US dollars for a new phone that can do a lot more. And, that technology caught up like what, within in 8 years, almost like
yes,
8 years ago, we would not have imagined. Like you imagine right now it's 2024, right? 8 years ago, I don't think it would have been as close. Like 2016, right? 2016, Apple was still king of the mobile market. And I don't think China's phones were even on their radar comparable to
yeah,
Apple's phones.
that's correct, absolutely correct. I think smartphone is one example. Huawei's recent like three-fold phone is a great, interesting innovation, and also the EV from China, BYD,
EV,
Xiaomi.
hands down,
Yeah,
China's got the car market like way ahead of the US, way ahead of the
exactly.
world.
It is so advanced and so affordable, and the cars are just so nice.
And
Maybe
what is
like
it,
five
like
years
20?
ago.
Is it 20,000 for like a comparable? It's like 20 or 30,000 US dollars for
Yeah,
a comparable to like a Model 3, right?
probably even better than
Even
like
better.
Tesla, maybe 5 years ago, it looks like really good, and it was considered more like a luxury. Nowadays, a lot of the Chinese EVs, they just look so nice and cheaper than Tesla, potentially,
Yeah, yeah.
but looks
My
so
wife,
nice. Yeah,
yeah, the pictures I saw from my wife riding in some of the cars that her former colleagues were, they're like, wow, I've never seen like these so
yeah,
fancy, like
yeah,
amazing
exactly.
quality inside.
That's a really good example where the tech from China not just catch up, also like maybe in this case leading in a lot of ways.
So what
Yeah,
is the US's edge in? Is it just the hardware? Like in, if they figure, like, what about software? Do you think like they'll say, even if they have Nvidia's chip processing, like, okay, it doesn't even need to be the most cutting edge and latest, the most efficient, right? That say the Blackwells are. If they can even build something that's less efficient, but they can produce at a much larger scale, China still has the sort of potential to overtake the Nvidia market share, right? Like just simply by cutting costs. Like what's the cost of 4090? Right now, a 4090 is in the vicinity of like $2,500 US, right? Like at least 2,000 US dollars, right?
Hmm.
That's like the whole price of an entire computer, like, and more, right?
Yeah, I think Nvidia is still way advanced, even just globally, not just Nvidia as of now. So every other company is trying to catch up, but Nvidia is just a clear winner in the space as of now. So I don't know how long it will take other companies and all other countries to catch up Nvidia. So that is a unique situation to me. And also, there's an entire of supply chain to produce such chips. For example, the technology of ASML is also very unique. So if there's export import control for China, they are not able to produce basically most advanced chips without those technologies. So yeah, so that to me is a clear gap, right? And I don't know how long and how fast
So there
this
is a
can.
gap, but there is also a manufacturing issue, as you identify with the supply chain. The manufacturer for NVIDIA is TSMC, right?
Right,
And
right.
if China was able to, I'm just speculating here, capture Taiwan and capture the TSMC warehouses intact, right? In theory, they have all the knowledge already there and the manufacturing facilities as well. It's right now, NVIDIA has this sort of intellectual property, but in manufacturing it, it's actually all happening in Taiwan. So by capturing Taiwan, they could sort of adopt all of the latest tech right there.
Um, I'm not 100% sure because TSM they just manufacture based on the design of Nvidia. The actual trade secret is still held by Nvidia.
So you
So
think
TS, yeah,
is
yeah.
there some secret sauce in the programming then? Because like all the hardware is built by TSMC, right?
Both hardware and software. For example, Nvidia has this their CUDA software to power the GPU, and also even the hardware build. I think they basically almost like give. My understanding is give TSMC almost like a blueprint of what to print or manufacture, but how that was created, why certain components is here and there. These are all trade secret by Nvidia. They are not.
Well, they'll be reverse engineered, right? So a lot of these are sort of can be compared to like military weapons secret, where you capture a downed helicopter in your territory and you just like disassemble and reverse engineer everything and try to figure it out.
Yeah, maybe that's possible. That I don't actually honestly don't have a lot of insights in this.
Okay. And shifting gears a little bit into, I guess, the dynamics of like investing in Nvidia was a good idea a year or two ago. Now it's like all time high. What's your sort of your take on the tech scene in terms of investment? Are we in the bubble now, or right now you saw everything is all time high? What's your take on the stability and investing?
Yeah, I think in the chip industry, the semiconductor in the industry, long term, I'm still bullish because it is pretty clear to me that we are at the beginning of the AI era. A lot of changes is still coming or still yet to come. That is just my the big picture is AI is still going to change the world. It is a change factor probably bigger than crypto, at least on par, if not bigger than mobile, than internet. And then within the cycle, within the change kind of cycle, there are ups and downs. I think as of right now, we are at a plateau stage. Seems like there's a fatigue to boost the stock price even further, or there's a strong story needed short term to further boost, let's say, Nvidia stock price. I think the growth in the short term gonna be a little bit slowed down in the next few months, but long term will be still good. What I'll be doing, I'll be probably just be for the ones that I want to own, but I don't own yet. I want maybe just wait for the pullback a little bit, especially around the election time. Around election time, the volatility could be high. There could be some pullback, and then I may get into some of the companies. Another thing is Nvidia is very much like if you look at the crypto industry, Nvidia is right now is clear the top, right? The top company in the AI industry. It's very much like Bitcoin in the crypto industry. And since Nvidia or Bitcoin is very, very big right now, it's going to be much harder and requires much more capital to, let's say, 2x, 3x, or maybe even 10x. So Nvidia just did a 10x in the last 2 years, right? That was amazing. But considering that it will do another 10x, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Not even 2x in my opinion. Let's say in the next 1 to 2 years. I may be wrong, but it's much harder to do that. So what I would like to do is actually look for kind of, probably everybody is doing that, is look for the next promising AI companies, but not as hot as Nvidia, and trying to get in some of those when there's a pullback. So I'm looking at things like AMD. AMD is still pretty high right now. If there's another pullback, I may get into more AMD. I already have some AMD, by the way. AMD, I like their CEO, Lisa. Lisa seemed to be very competent and also kind of related to Jensen Huang. So they kind of know each other. They are relatives, if I'm not mistaken. And
That's news to me. They're relatives.
yeah. They're actually relatives. And AMD seemed, if they execute well, they could produce some GPUs that are at least close to Nvidia, or at least 80, 70%, 80% close to Nvidia. But if you look at market cap of AMD, let me see what's the latest market cap of AMD. It's much, much lower than Nvidia, right? So it's very much like, I'm looking at AMD very much like ETH in the crypto world. So yeah, AMD's market cap is 266 billion right now. Nvidia probably 10x that, right? Give me 1 second.
Are you able to share your screen, or I don't know if you have an option there?
Yeah, I can share my screen. It's all right. Yeah, Nvidia is still it's close to 3 trillion, 2.98 trillion, right? Right now. So Nvidia currently is more than 10 times AMD.
You said billion and trillion. Is that
No. I said AMD is 266
260?
billion.
Okay, so it's
266 billion.
10x. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's 10x. So Nvidia is currently market cap wise 10x that of AMD. So yeah, just look at how ETH and the Bitcoin grew over the years and how close ETH get to Bitcoin, right? I see an analogy here. And also not just limit to AMD. You may want to find a number of AMD likes or companies. Basically, they could be the second company after Nvidia, and they could have a growth story. The growth story must hinge on some breakthrough in their development of GPU, because the crown jewel is developing high performance GPUs like Nvidia. That's a crown jewel. So you will need to think about which company is closer get there. So anyway,
I guess the closest, right? AMD traditionally raced against Intel, but I think Intel's management was so incompetent, they've managed to lose entire upgrowing trend of the AI cycle. So Intel is probably more behind than AMD at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Intel. The problem with Intel is, they need to completely turn around their business. They are completely lagged behind on the GPU kind of story. They're trying to do catch up. The problem is that the company itself is so big. There are a lot of, I would say, quote unquote, dead meat. It's very, very hard to turn around such organization. Yeah, so that's why if you look at this year, at least this year so far, Intel stock is like terrible. The stock performance is terrible. So yeah, I personally don't have a lot of faith in Intel itself, but that's just me. It doesn't give me that kind of innovation vibe, where Nvidia and AMD give me that innovation vibe. So yeah, that's at least an uncertain bet for me. So if I'm really, really uncertain, I probably just stay away.
I found the relationship here. I'm just going to share this.
Yes. Yes.
You're right. You see, they are like first cousins, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's Jensen. They have their parents are related. So Lisa is a younger cousin of Jensen. Wow.
Yeah, they're related.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a founder, the way I'm looking at investment is I have a look at the founder or the CEO or basically the head of that organization. That is super important because the stock market is just really, to me, the value of a stock is really just how much people are willing to vote with their money. And in the end of the day, you need to convince people the company is worthwhile. So CEO or founder is a critical force in storytelling. So if you look at Elon Musk, if you look at Jensen, if you look at Lisa included, actually, I'm very impressed by the storytelling by Lisa. They are all great storytellers. Obviously, you cannot just have storytelling, like otherwise you're basically telling a lie. It's like a fraudulent scheme, right? It's just good on storytelling is not good enough. You still need to deliver. But the leverage is storytelling. So if you do deliver, or if you are on the right track, the storytelling is the leverage. That's why, for example, Tesla can be a much higher multiple compared to other car companies. And the argument Elon makes is, oh, I'm not a car company. I'm a like technology AI company. But the main product is still the car as of now. Everything else is just a vision. It's a pie in the sky. But the CEO is able to tell that story. So that makes the multiple of Tesla much higher than other peers. So that is kind of one important aspect for me to look for investment. AMD, Nvidia, in this case, they both have CEOs who can tell a great story. One example, actually counter example, is SMCI. SMCI is going through a pretty big up and down this week. Just recently, apparently DOJ is going to investigate them. They have some scandals. That's actually, to me, is a red flag. But the original red flag that caught my eye was how incapable SMCI CEO storytelling. He just couldn't tell story. That was clear like months ago. So I was looking to SMCI, and then the first thing I look at it, okay, SMCI CEO or whatever talk they make, he just couldn't talk. He may be very talented, like technology, but he just couldn't talk. And there was a kind of awkward, almost like a product release or news conference. I don't know, like basically the product release event SMCI had, and the CEO of SMCI kind of invited Jensen Huang. By the way, they're also at least good friends. I'm not sure whether they are related. Probably they're just good friends. Invited Jensen to get on stage and basically do a co-presentation. In the end, Jensen kind of took over the stage and basically start selling SMCI products on behalf of the CEO, just because the CEO is not capable of selling this or telling a good story about their products. The product is probably a good product, don't get me wrong. So that is a counterexample. So the CEO not able to tell a good story is at least a red flag for me.
But is it just the storytelling, or can a bad story bad storytelling, can that still be implying something like an undervalued stock? They're actually doing a pretty good job, but they just aren't
Yeah, that's it.
selling that vision. And perhaps, he's 66 years old. Like, I'm looking at the CEO, Charles Liang, in, I think, 66 years old. He's probably close to retirement soon, and perhaps there will be a new CEO. And when that happens, we may see a spike or some sort of shift.
That's possible. If, let's say, the CEO is the only problem of the organization, that's possible. You look at what happened this year to, let's say, to Starbucks. They change the CEO. Seems like there's a boost on the stock market, right? But to me, actually, you're right. So it's very likely that you will have company who has very good stock performance without a good storytelling CEO. That's okay. In that case, we may just miss that investment opportunity, which is also okay. Which is just, hey, we missed the false positive. That's okay. I think for investment, to me, what's important is the precision. So I'd rather to have a high bar to say, hey, I would want to have a good CEO than risking a stock, like risking investing in a stock where the CEO just cannot sell their vision well. Because if a CEO cannot sell this vision well, basically you can see that there will be less people voting, using their money for their company. It's just like you will not get as much of a multiple as you would want. But now you're right. If the CEO is if the storytelling is the only problem of the company, then swapping a CEO with a good visionary storyteller would actually make a difference. In that case, if that event does happen, then we should revisit the investment thesis because we didn't have a good CEO. Now we do.
Yeah, I guess the risk is, as an investor, I think not knowing what the vision or the direction of a company is, it implies unstable or not clear on the sort of trajectory of the company where it's headed, right? So if say the leadership has not a clear vision on where they want to take the company, then as an investor, you should be concerned. You should be thinking, well, I don't know if that aligns with where I see the market or the industry or where this company needs to be to fulfill its role. As the third largest consumer of Nvidia chips, if you don't have a good storytelling of like where you want this ship to sail, then I think it's hard for investors to get on board, and consequently, it means your stock price isn't going to get up there.
Yeah, that's correct. And don't get me wrong, I think the CEO storytelling capability is just a factor, right? Although I think it's an important factor. It is a leverage, it's a boost. It's not a fundamental of a company. So the company need to be good on a good trajectory in general, and then a good CEO with good storytelling will just like boost the growth much faster, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're about time for our 30-minute podcast.
Yeah, sounds
So,
good. Night chat. It's pretty
yeah.
fun, and we can chat another time.
Yeah. We will continue producing these every maybe 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, sounds good.